Hey lifers, Break It Bill here, coming back to you from the garage. And we got Reaper behind me, and yes, it's a part again. I know. So, we got a whole bunch of parts that have arrived this past week, and I'm so excited. It's getting back together. Maybe, who knows? It probably won't be for long. So, I hope you stick around with me and watch how I replace this Dana 60 inner axle shaft, stub shaft, U-joint. Basically, I've gotten all the parts to fix it, and now we're going to be putting it all back together. So stick around, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button right down there, and we will be getting to it right now. All right, lifers, so just a real quick recap of what we're going to be replacing here. So basically, when I was out on the Mammoth, I snapped the inner axle shaft at this point right here. This is the replacement inner axle shaft. It is 4340 chromoly. Spline is 35. Spline length starts between 3 and 6. These are all some of these custom length measurements. It is a 1480 U-joint. I didn't realize it until now. They do use a 1480 in this style of axle. It has a GM outer, so it is a 12-inch from end of the splines to the center of the yoke. That's how they're measured. Also, as I was out at the parts store, as you can see, I started acquiring some more of the parts. So I got some gear lube, brake cleaner, which we're gonna need, some throttle body cleaner, replacement rear caliper pins, also all the sealants that I need, some more seals, bearings, U-joint, and everything else that I pretty much need to go back in. Also, another fun thing that I discovered, that the brake calipers on the driver's side are all seized up, so I'm gonna be putting new brake calipers on while I'm doing this project as well. So stick around. Now, as we come back over to the Jeep and we start to look at the spindle. So this is what actually came off of the hub, or the knuckle right there. The spindle itself goes through this. There is a bearing on the inside here. It's a needle bearing. There was supposed to be a seal here as well, but that has been, I think, long eaten by Reaper. That's why they call me Break It Bill. So we're going to be driving out that bearing, putting a new bearing in, and then also cleaning this up, the surface here a little bit more. There is another seal that goes in here. So let's drive out this bearing, and we're going to put a new one in. Here we go. All right, guys, so after trying to beat on it a couple times and the wood not working and all the bearings being pressed out, I did actually have to come in and use the Dremel to just basically put a score line in the bearing, which there's a little mark on the inside, but that's not going to hurt anything because the bearing's going back into that. Basically just clean it up, make sure it's good surface that it's going to seat into. And then the seal is going to go on top of that. So real quick, here we go. And we go, tappy, 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 tappy. And what do you know? It's in! Seal is right here, and we are going to be placing it in. Pretty sure that way. Just needs a seat in there. Actually, this bearing needs to be pressed in a little bit further, so here we go. Next is the bearing seal. That goes in like so. That just sits in there, and then there's another one that goes on the spindle that goes in there as well. After we get the spindle all set, we're going to be moving on to the actual axle. We do have to press in this U-joint. I already started the one side. Next, we're going to be removing these bearing caps, placing them into each side of that yoke, making sure that everything seats correctly, putting the snap rings on, and then we're going to start reassembling this back into the axle. And voila, we have it all pressed together and moving freely. So last part is to put the little Zerk fitting into that hole, which is, this is a greasable U-joint. There are greasable and non-greasable. I got the greasable one. So right here, little Zerk fitting guy, we're going to place into this hole right there. Grabbing a screwdriver and hopefully getting it to twist in. These things can be a bugger, as we can see, and it is. Gonna need 2 hands. The next steps after we get everything all seated together, axle shafts, U-joints, all the bearings, seals. Actually, forgetting a seal, so let me go grab that real quick. And I got the last seal right here. This one goes onto the actual stub shaft itself, and that seals up against the spindle, just like so. This is more of the dirt seal to keep all the dust and debris out of it when you're going down the trail. So let's slide this bad boy in there and continue on. All right, we are in there. Next, we have a spindle. Oh. Sometimes it is easier to put the seal on first. Making sure everything seats together nicely as we push it in. And there we go. We are halfway back together almost. Next we have the hub, the brake caliper bracket, and all the other goodies. So let's get to it. Next up, we're going to be putting the brake caliper bracket back on. That just the bolt and slide down also. We are going to use the 6 bolts. Tighten this back down. Always hand start them. It's always the best practice. You don't want to be going gung-ho with an impact gun right away. Then we use the impact gun. Yep, so next step is obviously putting the hub back onto this spindle. She is heavy, let me tell you. So, best we can do, line her up and slide her on. It is key to get the bearing on there and start pushing it onto the spindle. It's usually a messy job, so make sure you have some paper towels handy as well. After we get the hub on, next we have a spindle nut. This nut actually has a little pin on it, so we need to make sure that as we're tightening this down, we use the correct socket, which is a 2 5/8 spindle socket with the relief cuts in it. So as we start threading this on, there's a place for that little tabby to sit. This is usually a bit of a process. Once you get it started, it usually goes on pretty easy. This torque is 70 foot-pounds, and then after 70 foot-pounds, you are going to continue to tighten, making sure that the hub spins freely, and line up the tab with the locking washer that is secured. Using the torque wrench, we're going to torque to 70 foot-pounds. Alright, as I hold it on there, tightening, get to 70 foot-pounds, slid off. These are tricky to get to line up. Alright, there we go. Alright, so that's 70 foot-pounds. The hub still spins pretty freely under its own. Obviously there is going to be some resistance, it's going to stop on itself. Now let's see, we have a 50-50 shot of this little washer lining up. Let's see. Does it line up? Please, sir, on me. Alright, pushing it down. It does not seem like it lines up yet. You can flip this around. It does have an alternate side, obviously. So that's what I'm going to do. Flip it around and see, maybe. And do we? Yes, we do. We're in luck. So first try, I did get it to seat on there correctly. Next, we're going to be putting the locking washer on, or the locking hub nut, and that also gets torqued to 70 foot-pounds. Almost there. Lining this sucker up is half the battle, I swear. $70 foot-pounds. Hub still spins. We're in good luck. All right, so after that is all completed, we are going to be putting the drive slug, remember taking this out in the last video, putting that bag on. There's still a lot of grease on this. Basically, I'm just gonna wipe it back in. Call it a day. This grease isn't bad. It is blue. It's a wheel hub grease. So next we got to get this to line up with the hub. Like so. Pressing that in there. Next we have the Spindle Washer. It's a split washer, so you're going to be starting to feed it on. And this just basically keeps that drive slug from backing itself out the cap. It's not going to, but just in case. Next we have the cap retaining ring, which is covered in grease as well. No big deal, like I said, it's all good. That's getting put in first. Next is the retaining ring that holds the drive slug cap in. That goes in pretty easily as well, just like so. Finally, we're going to be putting the cap back on as well, which has an O-ring in it. I'm just going to slightly clean it up all the way around. When I pull this apart, there's never usually any water in it or anything, debris, dirt, anything of the sort. Also, additionally, I usually like to leave one screw protruding through. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my little hex drive, shove it in the front with the ratchet on there. I am going to line that up right like so, making sure that that lines up with the correct holes, grabbing the next bolt, lining that one up correctly as well. This basically just makes it easier as you put it all back together. They don't need much, just putting pressure on that little retaining ring in there. So, and it's just holding the cap on. These do have little O-rings usually on them, so make sure that the O-rings are still on these bolts. If not, you're going to have to replace them. They are a specific style of bolt. It has a relief at the end for the O-ring to seat into. back together on the hub side. It is always usually very messy, very greasy. It's kind of the nature of the beast. You are dealing with a hub that has a lot of grease in it because of the bearings. Next, brake caliper, wheel, back in business, baby.